Hi, my name is Kisha Brown, and I am the founder and CEO of Justice Connection. And I am proud to be building the premier lawyer and legal referral service for you. Black women are one of the fastest growing groups of entrepreneurs in the United States. Yet despite our hustle, it's been challenging for Black women to raise capital. Since 2018, for Black and Latinx women, we've only raised 0.64, that's right, 0.64% of all venture capital funding. That's why I decided to come to my community, the Justice Connection community and family. We are better off having access to solid legal counsel. It makes our community stronger, our families more secure. We're able to defend ourselves if anything should arise. It's important to have someone who can relate to you, understand your background, and is culturally competent to handle your issues. I started this journey because I was always asked for a legal referral. Kisha, can you find somebody who does criminal law? Can you find somebody who does family law? Sometimes it would take me hours, sometimes days to make that connection. And I felt like, one, as Black lawyers, we were leaving our communities most vulnerable by not having a concerted network that connected us. And quite frankly, businesses and corporations who were looking to diversify their ranks didn't know where to go. I knew tons of Black lawyers, still do, and now I know more than ever before. I've been building this database from scratch since 2018, piece by piece, putting things together in order to ensure that we were making the matchmaking process most efficient and effective, utilizing new innovative technology to enhance the customer experience. Justice Connection is more than just a platform. It is a resource that you can go to for advice, for tips, to connect with the best Black lawyers out there. And so we're building this for you. It's important for us to be able to be competitive in this market. We need to get the word out by connecting with communities, churches, sororities, fraternities, businesses, local and enterprises. It's important for us to stay ahead of the game as far as creating innovative technology. We're set on utilizing the most recent artificial intelligence and natural language processing to make sure that the legal matchmaking process is efficient and effective. We're also looking to build out our team. And so brick by brick, we are committed. We are committed to bringing you solid legal resources and solid legal referrals. So I just want to thank you all for considering Justice Connection. Please follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Subscribe on our website at www.justisconnection.com. Thank you to the entire team and everyone who's lifted us up in prayer and continues to support us. We want to continue to support you as well. We want to keep you informed in the Justice Connection family so that you know where to go if and when you need legal resources. There we go. Hello, good evening, Justice Connection family. I hope everyone is doing well tonight. Look, we are here to bring you quality legal services. Mr. Crawley, good to see you. Peace and blessings to you. But I got to make sure that we're doing this with a good internet connection. So my producer might let me know at some point if my internet is acting up, because, you know, folks be trying to do the most and Comcast is not trying to let me be great sometimes. So we're going to work on that. But I want to welcome everybody this evening. You know, here we are, another Thursday, and we are coming on the heels of the Derek Chauvin trial coming to a close, at least at this level. He was found guilty and on all accounts. We might get into that a little later with our guests. But I want to recognize that we are all feeling a little heavier than usual as we digest and process everything that's going on in our country, how it affects us personally and our entire community. And this is a time more than ever for us to really tap into justice, demand it, right? Go after it. Require that this country give us our due justice and continue to pound the pavement on it. We built this country and we deserve nothing less than excellence. And so this evening, I'm so excited. I'm excited, y'all, to bring to you an amazing attorney. Her name is Bernice Mireku North. And Ms. North is barred not only in Maryland and the District of Columbia, but also in Texas, big old Longhorn state as well. And so she is a gift to us. And she's going to break down a number of things, especially when it comes to our wealth and when it comes to our body, preserving our wealth and our personhood. So with that, I'll bring on Denise. I'll bring on Bernice and we get this party started. Bernice,
hello. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm good, thanks. Thanks for having me on tonight.
Yeah, it's so good to have you. You look great. Sound great.
Good to you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to connect. Look, we just saw each other yesterday. I'm like, it's been such a long
time. Right. Well, I mean, I just thank you again for having me and for your leadership in Justice Connection and really creating a phenomenal lawyer referral network. So I'm happy to be here, happy to serve.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so before we get started, I usually don't do the big bios because I feel like I never really like to listen to other people's bios. I'm going to get into the stuff, the good stuff, and hear about them as we go along. But I do want to start off with two questions. One, letting folks know where you went to law school so that they're like, okay, she legit, she a lawyer, right? And then two, why you went to law school. So those two questions, where and why?
Well, I went to the wonderful Howard University School of Law, graduated in 2006. And, you know, the lawyer route was always a personal passion of mine. You know, I grew up watching like the Perry Masons and all those other shows and always wanted to be that advocate for other people. And then where I grew up in Montgomery County, I grew up in Silver Spring. It's this, you know, somewhat familiar town if you're in the DMV area, but outside, not a lot of people know about it. But, you know, I grew up in a, you know, apartment complex that at one point was dealing with police raids and drug trafficking, and kind of going through that experience, I kind of learned as a young girl the importance of really protecting communities regardless of income or zip code. And so that's why, you know, I went on to go to University of Maryland for undergrad, and then I went straight to Howard for law school because I didn't want to wait. I wanted to try to get on the justice path right away. Took a lot of opportunities to work in public service, and then eventually, after clerking for a couple of years, I went on to become a prosecutor in Anne Arundel County, Maryland, where I served for 6 years. And then, you know, after a while, went to private practice, and then got on my own. So that's a little bit about me. I've always been passionate about achieving justice. So I believe it's a journey, not so much a destination. It's a journey that we all constantly have to be on and be on the right path. And so that's why I'm passionate about not just criminal justice, but economic justice as well.
All right. All right. That's why we get along so well, girl.
That's right.
Yeah. And just really quick, can you just for folks viewing at home, sort of what is clerking? You mentioned that you clerked.
Sure.
And you could just say a little bit about, you know, what clerking is.
Thank you for that, because I loved clerking. Clerking is an opportunity to work for a judge, whether it's a trial court, you know, where you're, you know, seeing the people, you know, with juries and jury selections, just like the Derek Chauvin trial, for instance, you know, being someone that's working for that judge, you know, the one in the black robe on the bench, helping them draft memos and kind of helping them with their dockets for the day and things like that. Those are the clerkships that I obtained. There's also other types of clerkships where you're like working at the appellate level. Basically, if something goes wrong at the trial level, what can you appeal to the higher court to make a decision? And then there's law clerks there at that level. Wonderful opportunities to really get an understanding of this criminal justice system, as well as the civil justice system as well. Fabulous opportunity. And I had the opportunity to clerk not only in the District of Columbia, but also in Prince George's County and Circuit Court, Maryland. Both phenomenal places to work. And yeah, I learned a lot. So if anyone's interested in law school and doesn't know about clerkships, definitely contact me, because I know a slew of people that will co-sign on the value of that opportunity.
Yeah. And I would imagine working for a judge, right? You now have this behind the veil experience, right? Where you sort of know the workings that go on in the chambers and behind the scenes, and how, quite, I would imagine that that helps inform how you also represent your clients.
Oh yeah, because I didn't grow up from a family of lawyers. My dad's a cab driver, mom is a nurse, and I just wanted to achieve justice, right? I didn't know what that looked like beyond what you saw on television. So I thought, why not go behind the veil and figure out what's going on behind the scenes, And I was very fortunate to get the opportunity to start my legal career in DC doing that.
Excellent. Excellent. All right. So, we started talking a little bit about when you mentioned the different court levels and appeal and so forth. And since we are really on the heels of this major trial, right, that has sort of captivated the country and even had our president weigh in, and, the pundits, but most importantly, our own community, right, has been really tied to this case. What can you offer us as far as some insight from your perspective as someone who's been a prosecutor and someone who also defends folks on the criminal side and is familiar with the different processes related to criminal law? Is there any insight that you can offer us on this area?
Do we have more than an hour? I'll keep it brief, because it's been, we had scheduled this time to talk, not knowing the verdict was going to come in. So clearly it is fresh on my mind. And I've been reflecting a lot on the decision. I can tell you, as a prosecutor, I know it was not easy to try that case. There's a reason why the Attorney General got a slew of attorneys to help that were in private practice, that were in the office, of course, because it really took a village to overcome this perception that you can trust what the police reports were saying. If not for that 17-year-old that recorded and many other videos that surfaced, we wouldn't have known the truth. So, my mantra now is to tell my clients, videotape everything. You just don't know. And it's unfortunate that we have to live in that state of affairs, but you just don't know. Because when a prosecutor gets their case, they get the police report, they get the information, and that's what they're working with. And it's really hard to break outside of what they believe to be true, because, we as a prosecutor, I used to be a prosecutor, you're working with these people in and out every single day. But no one is above the law, as clearly was shown this week. No one's above the law, and you have to be held accountable for making mistakes, because those types of mistakes erode trust in the system, which leads into the protests, leads into the anxiety in a lot of people regarding the criminal justice system. And that's something that I definitely have been reflecting on quite a bit. And yeah, videotaping is key. And just being cooperative, with the investigation and with the trial was very critical. And I feel like that's something that needed to happen. And I felt the jury felt the same way. The case was pretty much a slam dunk for the state. But I think both sides, on a lawyer perspective, practicing law, I think both sides did the best they could with the information that they had, including the defense. They did the best job they could. But the facts were the facts. The facts were the facts, and that was a murder. Now, what the sentencing will be is another thing to worry about. There's an interesting case in Texas where I'm drawing a blank on the woman's name, but a police officer thought it was her apartment on a particular floor in her Dallas, I think it was Dallas apartment, and shot an unarmed Black man, eating ice cream. And I think she got like 10 years. So the justice, as I said, it's not, for me, it's not a destination, it's a journey. You constantly have to push the needle towards getting to that point. And that's something that we're all trying to grasp with. A lot of the comments right now, as a result of the trial, have been like, justice has been served, or no, it's not justice, it's accountability. That goes to show you how we are really trying to redefine what justice means in our country right now. Because I think that is it strengthens our country by having some sort of common understanding. And are we ever going to get to a common understanding? I don't know, but we need to work towards that. So, on a legal practice level, I think everyone did the best job they could do. But on I think in terms of society, that verdict needed to happen. And we're all kind of having to wait on the sentencing and see what justice is really going to turn out to be in this case.
Yeah, no, very well said. And you touched on a number of different points, and one of them being around how the prosecutor's role in having additional counsel at the table, right? Or a part of the team. And I think, that's one of the things that most folks don't realize, right? That it wasn't just one person who was doing all the work, the research, the writing, the documentation. People don't realize, you put a sticker sometimes on a document and making sure the copy, all of that stuff, the huge amount of back work, right? That goes into preparation that in this type of case, right? And this is unfortunately not an anomaly, right? And it's an anomaly in the sense that it made it this far. But the issue itself and the work that lawyers have been doing in bringing forth discrimination or harassment or brutality cases isn't new, right? And so for folks to witness sort of the days of trial, do you think that it was a good reflection on the work that goes into goes into a case, right, that a lawyer puts in? Because I'm sure you get sometimes, when your fee comes into play and everybody needs to get paid for the services they render, right? And oftentimes people don't understand what they're paying for, right? And do you feel like this example, though, shows sort of like, hey, there's a lot of work that lawyers put into this, and they're rarely just doing it by themselves. They're usually having to get, whether it's an investigator, a paralegal, a receptionist, an assistant, somebody to aid. Because, sometimes the fee part about lawyers sometimes scares folks, like, oh, it just costs too much and they just taking your money. But I want you to talk about, this example and sort of the work that went into it and how it reminds you or is reflective of the work you do for your clients as well.
Well, I would say, I'm glad you kind of made that connection, because I have found, I guess, during this period of the trial and the verdict, I'm getting a lot less pushback on like how much my fees are. Because I guess people really respect, if someone's out there really wanting to fight for me, I gotta pay them what they're worth. And I think, and so I'm really glad you brought that up, because I never really thought about that in terms of like how it's impacted people's understanding of what lawyers really need to do to get the job done. Public defender's office, they're wonderful, but they also have to have assistance as well. I mean, they have a panel program where if they can't handle certain cases due to conflict of interest, they'll bring on private counsel to help them. And I do a lot of those cases as well. And they need the help. They need the help because it takes a village to really try to achieve justice. There are phenomenal criminal defense attorneys across Maryland. I can name a whole bunch, but they're all phenomenal. And I'm very honored to be a member of the bar that works along with them to try to seek justice. So I think that this whole issue with the death of George Floyd and the Derek Chauvin trial has really made a lot of people understand, okay, there's more to this than a simple blurb in the news. It took a lot of work to get to that point, to get to the point where the jury simply believed it. Because in my opinion, I think the decision probably was made like weeks before the verdict came out. I think they got it. That's my sense. I think but they have to hear everything out and of course make their final decision.
Bernice, I think the country, not just the jury, right? We all learned so much. I mean, witness after witness who said, I pled to the officer to stop. I'm a paramedic. I said, hey, let me help. All these folks that we didn't even know were there. And it really showed, how the community, right, can make the real impact on police, on changing police behavior, on holding police accountable, right? The lawyers are definitely a super important part, but without each one of those community members standing in the gap, right, we wouldn't have necessarily made these connections, right, that got us to the end result that we felt was closest to justice.
Yeah, it was a wake-up call for so many people in so many different ways. People that aren't that close to the system, people who are, you know, part of the system. You know, I deal with clients that have a wide range of issues, you know, whether it's, you know, drug abuse or, you know, unfortunate history in their background, in their upbringing, whatnot. And they're all trying to navigate life, you know, and sometimes something happens where they just hit rock bottom. And I also have people who are doing well professionally, but there's a bump in the road. And both spectrums of our society, those people that have those lives, I think everyone is learning, okay, well, regardless, you need to have someone strong and who cares to represent you and not just see you as another case. And I also find that, you know, now that court's back in session in Maryland, there's been, I can sense more compassion at least in the judiciary that I've seen in terms of some of these cases. And everyone is, I think, as you pointed out, the country has had a huge change of heart in terms of how we're improving our justice system. I mean, we know it's a slow system, we know it exists, but we know the ugliness of it if we don't check it. And that and what happened on that day last May, you know, all those citizens tried to keep those officers in check and they felt powerless. And as I mentioned before, that verdict needed to happen to show no members of the community, you have the power. You did the right thing by saying that it was wrong. And I think that just so, it's so telling. It's so telling on how I can't imagine being in that position. You know, and I practice law, but just feeling that powerlessness, I can sense it in the videos that kept playing. And yeah, I think it's had a huge impact on our ability to not only see justice, but respect the lawyers and the judges and the whole system that's trying to do their best and making sure we find those right ones in the system and keep them there.
That's right. That's right. Because each player, each person plays a really important role, right? So it's choosing the lawyer, like you said, that has a vested interest in you. And you know, that's why I created Justice Connection, right? To really bring Black lawyers to the forefront in ways that showcase us as Black lawyers and the excellence we bring to the legal community, and for Black people to know, one, that we exist, all the work and the knowledge that we have, and that Black lawyers can stand in the gap for the Black community, right? To be defenders and those advocates. And as you know, in some of the criminal trials that you do when you're defending folks, what would you say is one of the things, one of the first things that you tell your potential clients when they walk in the door for a criminal law matter?
I would say relax. That's probably what you say. Because usually when they're at the point of getting a lawyer, they're really wound up and frustrated, and they're at their low point and they don't know what to do. And they're, you know, whatever they felt like was in order is not. And that creates anxiety out of anybody, really, but especially if someone who's facing their loss of freedom or, you know, a heavy fine or not, or disruption in their lives. That is devastating. And I always try to, in terms of standing in the gap of the system and the pain that they're going through, standing there, say, look, I'm with you. Let's walk through this together. You've hired me to kind of think through the system for you, because the system is not thinking about your emotions. They're not. And, you know, I am, that's my job. So let me help you get through this. So I usually just say, you know, relax. Let me tell you what's going on. Let me tell you how to get through it. And it's the ones that don't relax, as it's always a more difficult journey. But, you know, nevertheless, you gotta just trust the people that you hire to do the messy work for you while you try to build your life back together.
That's right. I love that. Well, I love the fact that you shared that, you know, your role is to sort of help somebody get their life back, you know, as they're going through this crisis, right? And that allowing you to do your job, your work, showcasing what you know is to their benefit, right? Yeah. What would you, so if you could, I know you've seen many cases in your time as a clerk and as a practicing attorney. What would you say is one of your most memorable, I guess would be the word, or one of the criminal clients, cases that you've had in the past that sort of stand out for you in this situation where you were able to be impactful for that person?
Well, you kind of I have two answers for you. I mean, one, I would say the most impactful case wasn't when I was a lawyer, but when I was a law clerk back in DC Superior Court. It was my first clerkship. And it was a case where there were about four juveniles, but they were tried as adults, that they were charged with sexual assault and rape of a DC tourist, United States tourist. And the, quote unquote ringleader was a young kid. I believe he was 16 at the time. This is, gosh, almost more than 15 years ago, or almost 15 years ago. He was charged as an adult, and he had been through the juvenile system, and he was charged as an adult. And this is my, my first foray into to really seeing the criminal justice system play out in terms of, doing the pleas and, how all these co-defendants come together and why one person should take a plea earlier or not, things like I was learning a lot about this process. And when this kid pled guilty, he was the last of the group. And he got about 41 years in prison. And I remember, this is more than 15 years ago, but I remember the mother sobbing, the prosecutor's head was low. Everyone was so in pain. And it is something that has stuck with me for the rest of my life. I can tell you, that is the most impactful case I've ever dealt with. I went on to Clerking Is County, and I have many other clients who I feel like I've made an impact. But one second, as goes with life and working from home, I have a little one that wants to show her presence. You want to say hi? Hi. Okay. All right. Mommy's almost done. Okay. Keep hugging you. Okay. Wonderful. Okay. Mommy's almost done. I think Daddy's asking for you. Okay. Oh. Yeah. You can close the door. And that, folks, is how we live our lives in the COVID-19.
No worries. No worries.
We just roll on, right? That's it. Yeah. That's working as a mother. So that was the most impactful case. So all the cases I've had since then, I'm just grateful that I made a difference. There are people that, especially the ones that are, have families and they're just trying to, make ends meet, and then they fall into the cracks, whether they're going through a personal family crisis or there's a drug issue, they fall into the cracks and they get a charge. And just helping them navigate that particular moment in their life, I take those little victories every day. So I have a whole bunch of victories like that every single day.
Excellent. So, that touches on an issue that so many folks really have problems with. You all right?
No, I'm good. That's how it goes.
No, I was going to say, so many folks really wrestle with juvenile law, right? And the issue of trying children, because let's call them, I hate when we call them juveniles because that makes them seem different. Children, right? The word juvenile is for the children's court system. And we should really call it the children's court so that we remember who we're impacting, right? When our police officers pick up a 6-year-old and handcuff them and put them in the police car, they are talking children, not juveniles, right? And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on, in that case, there was a child who was sentenced as an adult, and what we can do better. Like, what are you seeing in the courts when it comes to how we're treating our children, and especially Black children, because that's who's disproportionately being impacted. What are you seeing as someone who's in the courts every other day? With how our court system is treating our children, our youth?
Well, I remember my stint in juvenile as a prosecutor was the most, talk about, the first incident I told you about was the situation when I was a law clerk. So the idea of juveniles being treated as adults has always had a profound impact on my life. And I definitely have bent against treating kids as adults. I think, you know, as you see with my kid, you know, they think they know everything, but they don't, right? And there's science out there saying that, you know, kids' brains develop slower than, you know, than the criminal justice actually wants to portray them as adults. I mean, 18 being charged as adults, their brains don't develop until like, you know, 24, 25, I think that's what the statistics say. And we need to have a justice that reflects that science. I really strongly believe that. I think we have a ways to go. And I appreciate, at least in the state of Maryland, so much work was done to push reform, especially with the Second Chance Act that was passed in Maryland. Very much happy to see that legislation moving forward, because it gives kids, you know, I think about that 16-year-old that got 44 years, it gives them a chance of hope. After 20 years, maybe they have a shot, as opposed to the 40, 50-year sentences that, or life sentences as they would get. So I think we are turning a page. It clearly is a challenge to turn that page. I mean, look at all the efforts that have gone into trying to get us to say, okay, well, juveniles shouldn't be treated as adults in these particular aspects. I mean, those fights are challenging fights. Why? I don't know. Let me tell you. Let me step back.
That's right. Come on, Lau.
Yeah. I mean, I thought about that. Well, I say why, not to say I don't know, but I don't want to believe that to be the case. I was talking to someone this about the other day. You know, they don't see Black and brown children as human beings.
That's right.
That's what it comes down to. And I mean, enough is enough.
If little white blonde children were being locked up for 41 years, there would be an uproar. They'd be changing laws, pardoning left and right. But let's be clear. Because brown and Black children, they never mind. They need to get these super predators, right?
Yeah.
Off the streets.
Yeah. And that goes, but that's a cultural issue. I mean, as you see, my white
supremacist racist issue.
It's completely white. Yeah. But here's the thing. So, I mean, as you saw my daughter's cameo appearance. I mean, she's 4, and, you know, I have been very attentive to seeing how, you know, the not the committed curriculum that she gets, but the things that she's learning, what she's exposed to. And I'm very cautious saying, well, you know, we have to celebrate ourselves and uplift ourselves.
Yeah, that's right.
And when you see a lot of these things out on television that doesn't reflect who these kids are and their backgrounds, that feeds the seed of doubt of themselves. And speaking to boys, I see, I credit, I don't have a son, but I credit mothers and fathers of Black sons, because that is a hard road to travel. That's a hard road to travel. I mean, I see it, you know, in my past, going with different childcare situations and seeing the boys have it harder. And I think to myself, gosh, it starts this early. It starts this early. And, you know, I said 2, 3, 4, just being harder on them. You know, but I sense it's probably because they're going to be treated not like humans when they get adults, right? So tell them how to behave now. I guess that's my theory. I mean, I'm not in that field, but it's something that I pay a lot of attention to, just as a mom, not so much as an attorney, but as a mom, that we started way too young to break down these kids, way too young. And it's not our fault. It's all about what the resources are available to us. You know, when we tell our kids, you know, go watch a video or do this, you got to be careful what they're watching. You know, how is it going to impact their psyche? And so when they go out there and for instance, if they go up, like I'm thinking about the case in Montgomery County where I live and where I practice, the 5-year-old kid that runs off from the school, because for whatever reason runs off from the school after some sort of fit, and the police interacting with them the way they did. And I mean, I'll show you the video when we get offline, but you know, the way those police interacted with them was quite unfortunate. But I also felt like it was a reflection of everyone's culture on how we treat the Black boy, right? And that has to stop.
Everyone's culture. That ain't culture.
Well, white supremacy is a part of our culture. So I would say that.
Okay. As long as we are identifying it, because it's not as if it's, you know, Ethiopian culture.
Something more general.
No, you girl, call it what it is. Just look, we ain't Black is the Black. You can be yourself all day long. I'm Black on both sides, okay?
That's true.
That's right.
That's true. That's
call
true.
It what it is.
I mean, and speaking on that, you know, the situation I was talking about in Montgomery County, the officers were Black. they're, you know, Black officer, male and female. I thought this is just how they were raised to believe that was acceptable.
And police
and it wasn't.
Right? They go blue often sometimes, regardless of, you know, the color that they are. And then they have a certain code of how certain people are treated and being able to treat certain people certain ways because, you know, ain't nothing gonna happen. That's why you can have your hands in your pockets, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was one of the things where Chauvin, he had his hands in his pockets. He was so comfortable.
Yeah, right? And the stories that we see, you know, that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's so many more stories out there we don't see. So many more.
I disagree. BlackUSA.news, because I can't be putting stuff on the cross. Black people cannot be white supremacists. That don't go together. So let's be clear with that.
That's a whole nother topic.
That's a whole nother topic. But I had to point that because we can't just be having stuff that don't go in line with the vision. But yes, I'm sorry, Bernice.
I mean, there's so much that, and I think as a Black attorney, we have to be aware of that, because otherwise, that's not going to be part of the narrative. It's not going to be part of the conversation. You know, because yes. And I bring up the example of the boy, because I recently did an opinion piece in the Washington Post about it, so it's fresh in my mind. And there's rightfully so a lot of uproar about the reaction of the officers. But in the Black community, you're like, well, have you seen that before? Have you seen that type of, and yes, that's a problem, but we've seen it before. And that's the unfortunate part. And then we don't really talk enough about that, because there's not enough really in those people in those conversations to bring that up. But I say to say, it goes to my earlier point, is that Black and brown kids are not treated as humans. And that needs to change. And that's why, you know, as you know, me as a parent, I know you're a parent as well, you know, I try so much to uplift my daughter and, you know, and anyone around her to show she is worthy and she is bright and she is wonderful. Because that's really, without that, that's how a lot of these juvenile cases come about, you know, not getting enough attention. And it's not that they're off to a life of crime. They're just not getting enough attention. So something's happening. So they end up in the system because, you know, mom and dad are busy working 2 or 3 jobs, and they don't really know what's going on because they're just trying to get enough to feed their families, especially in this pandemic right now. You know, crime has gone up, but I'm sure juvenile crime has gone up too. We had a case earlier, I think in the last few weeks, I think in Prince George's County, where a 12-year-old shot a 13-year-old, and they were out late at night. It's like, you know, how that even happened? They're late, you know, out late at night on a school night, you know. But it's a lot. I mean, you know, and I could talk about this forever. But the bottom line is the sense of treating kids as kids needs to change. And we all know the kids in the system are Black and brown. So we need to start having those conversations and changing the narrative and changing the way we view our children in society.
Yeah, no, very well said. Very well said. I do want to touch on one of your other specialties, if you will, right? And so Bernice is an avid promoter of Black people and people in general. I know you're really passionate around folks preserving their wealth, right? And being strategic and smart about how they pass down their wealth. So I wanted to touch on that and give you an opportunity to really share some insight and some tips with folks on what folks should be thinking, because Bernice, I know you know that it can be a struggle sometimes, you know, to get this message across about what estate planning is, a will, advance directives, the whole gamut, and getting folks to really see themselves in this narrative. So how do you get the word out? How do you connect with people around estate planning?
Well, a lot of my connection is with not just, looks like we lost you there, but I can certainly answer the question until we get you back. So a lot of the, okay, we're good. Okay. Okay. So in terms of estate planning, a lot of what I do is just, you know, really just having a lot of community conversations and having platforms like this to kind of introduce people to estate planning. I mean, I'm the child of immigrants, so I definitely empathize with a lot of immigrant communities that don't necessarily think about these tools to preserve one's wealth. But, you know, the critical things that anybody needs is a will basically says, what are we going to do with our stuff when we are gone? And then a power of attorney, which is, what am I going to do with my stuff when I can't make decisions on my own, regarding my money or my other property, and an advance directive, which is who's going to take care of my health decisions when I can't figure out for myself. I mean, those three things are critical for anybody. And a lot of people don't understand that because everyone's just so busy living their lives. But just taking, it necessarily have to be a day, but taking a couple hours, every week or, every other week, just to kind of put the pieces together as to, what do you want to pass down to your family and your loved ones is critical, especially, and especially if there are issues where you have children or any members of families that, might not be in the best position to have your assets when you die. So it's probably better to have someone else take care of them. And that's where the tool of a trust comes in, whether it's a trust to take care of your special needs children, or a trust for someone who you feel like, okay, well, if they get my assets, they're probably in the best shape because they might be dealing with, drug addiction or other aspects of their life where they're not quite stable. Those are things that have to be considered, and no one really likes to talk about it, but a lot of it just comes down to getting used to having these conversations, kind of dropping little hints like, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? With the ones that you love and you want to protect when you die. So those are some of the basic things that I offer with my clients, just kind of giving them an understanding so they can be comfortable having those conversations and moving forward.
Excellent. So when you're first, and I always kind of touch on sort of that first conversation because it's getting folks in the door, right? In a sense, because when somebody is in the door, they're like, okay, I've thought about this, I guess, enough to be open to want to pursue something. I haven't been able to really, there have been certain parts of my family that I've been able to get in the door. Some folks are looking around the door. Some people know there's a door, right? There's so many different places that we are at as a community. And to have so far to go and really learning about this, because I believe the more we learn about, estate planning and will and the whole system that really exists, we'll be more likely to want to engage in some form or fashion, right? So how would you suggest that people sort of approach this, right? It's I almost feel like saying, you need to get your estate done feels so like daunting. It feels sort of like, do I have an estate? Let me get an estate first, right? Or like, oh, how do I work this out? And I feel like there's got to be in your, you see this all the time. Like there's got to be something that you feel like, what is it that you advise folks? Let me get that straight to. What do you advise folks, right, who are like on the cusp?
Well, the government, wherever you live, already has an estate plan for you. And so you got to ask yourself, you worked really, really hard all your life to get what you need, to get what you need for your family. Do you want the government to decide what to do with it when you're gone? That's really what it comes down to. I mean, is that what you really want? If not, then you need to take the time out and craft something that says what you want, what your desires are. That's really what it is, because, the government doesn't know you. They haven't sitting with you at the dinner table. They haven't driven with you to work. They don't know you like you know yourself, and they don't know your needs like that the needs of your family. So that's really what it is. Like either you get to it or the government has already set it up for you, and it's not necessarily what you want. And moreover, it gives your family members a peace of mind when you don't have the will in place. Like I said, the government decides for you. There's already set rules in the state laws that says what happens to property upon death, and that can be a costly endeavor to sort out. With wills, you at least have a plan in place for the court to review, and if you don't, it comes down, especially with probate, it comes down to whoever's the first to file to say, hey, I want to get this probate started. And there might be issues with that. You don't know how many family members want to be the one to be that executor of the estate or not. So that's really what it comes down to. It's like you either want the government to handle it for your affairs for you, or you, who worked really, really hard all your life to get the money, get the house, get what you needed for your kids or for your family members back home or wherever. It's up to you how you want that handled when you're gone.
Wow, so well said, really well said. Can you touch on, just break down a little bit, the whole notion of probate? Because it's often used in the, when you're talking about a will and your estate plan, and just wanting to make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Well, so there's a variety of ways to probate. Probate basically is like, okay, what's going to happen now that you've died? What's going to happen with all your assets? Everything that has your name on, bank accounts, any deeds to a house or the car, anything that doesn't have at least someone else's name on it. What do we do with that? And that's where probate process comes in. Now, when you have a will, the probate process is still relevant because you still need the court to just verify that everything you say in your will is there. That's not the case with the trust. That's a different tool that probably I can talk about it for another half an hour at least, but I know we're short on time. But a will needs to be done through probate just to confirm that everything that was said in that will is done. And that could be a shorter process. The longer process, the more costly process when you don't have the will, and the court needs to figure everything. Okay, if someone is, for instance, saying, "Hey, look, I want you to deal with this person's estate," you have to deal with any other person that might object to that, and there's a time frame for that. And then once you actually get someone appointed to handle the probate, you have to keep accounting of everything. And that could take a while too, depending on how much assets. So that might not take a while, depending on the number of assets. It all depends upon really how much assets the decedent has. But the issue of probate is just confirming what's out there for the deceased and what to do with it, because it can't just be sent around, not claimed, right? So that's really what it comes down to at probate.
So helpful. So helpful. Thank you so much for that definition. That was probably one of the most helpful breakdowns that I've heard. So that was very helpful. And so you mentioned, right, like that. So either way, will or no will, you're going to probate. One that has a much quicker process, probably cheaper as well, because it's faster. But you mentioned that the court, and if you don't have a will, right, the court's figuring out your assets, or the will is figuring out your assets. What are assets? Like, what counts as an asset?
Essentially, any property that you have. So any bank accounts or cars. Life insurance is not necessarily an asset, because you already have something on paper saying what's going to be happening with that particular account. There might be, I say life insurance, but really any insurance policy is one. Anything where your name is on it, and there's no set document or explanation as to what's going to happen with it when you die, is considered an asset that has to be probated. So that's essentially the easiest way of defining what an asset is. So you can say stuff, but assets is a fancier name for stuff. I mean, now the shoes in your closet, who's going to have that? You don't really go to probate for that. It's something to think about. When you do write your will, you want to maybe write in a letter saying, hey, so-and-so can have my pair of shoes or my watch. But those aren't usually things you have to go to court for. I mean, you think about the value of the watch versus the value of actually getting an attorney to, enter your appearance and help you with the case. It's not worth it. So a lot of people just kind of deal with the bigger assets like the house, bank accounts, any stocks, CDs, or any financials. Really, it's really the crux of what assets have to be probated.
Got it. So what if grandma kept all her money under the mattress, right? And she was renting, right? And didn't go nowhere but the beauty supply salon, and so didn't have a car. Like, is everybody going to probate, or can somebody pass away, her things be sort of split amongst her her family, and then that's it?
Well, I mean, it really all depends. I mean, it all depends on the number of people that, one, find the money, or two, one, to have an interest in it. A lot of times, especially in these situations where there is no will, ideally the family comes together and figures out what they want to do without having to race to the courthouse. And that's really the ideal way. And unfortunate, yes, and the fight broke out, right. That's really the ideal situation. You don't want the fight to break out, right? You want, there's a loss in the family. You're grieving. The last thing you want to do is fight about the money under the mattress. So, what I suggest to clients is, like, just talk it out with the family first and see what if you really, when you actually need to get the attorney involved, because you can sort out a lot of these things, which makes it a lot easier for you. Because if you don't have the will, let's get started on the process of trying to figure out what to do with it. And that's really the simplest way to go about it. So hopefully the fight doesn't break out. That's
right. So when somebody comes to you after somebody has passed, is it usually because there is a dispute about assets, money, house, cars, something that there's a court case that some family member has brought up? Are folks usually like, hey, we knew we were going to go to court, or folks like stuff has hit the fan and everybody is trying to get counsel? Why is it that folks will come to you after?
There are a variety of reasons to seek an attorney for probate, but when I normally get a client, usually because, after someone has passed, and they don't know what to do. They don't know what to do. They're grieving, they're mourning, but they know this is the process they have to take. So oftentimes, that initial meeting might be delayed a little bit, because they just want information to kind of sort out what they have to pull together and what they have to bring before there's any filings that occur. So I've been fortunate. I haven't had any cat fight cases yet, but I'm sure some of my other estate planning colleagues have had those situations.
Gotcha. So when someone is sort of at that stage, whether they are young or not so young, what are some of the first things they should do to prepare themselves before they come to you, to start the process?
Start the probate process.
So for example, me, right? Or someone who says, you know what, I have listened to keep the Black Lawyer Roundtable now for 3 sessions, and Kisha's had a number of dynamic estate planning attorneys who've come and they've shared, and I'm at the point now where I'm ready to talk to someone, right? I'm ready to sort of say, first step, I'm open to this process. I don't have a will. I don't have anything sort of in place. I have kids. I've determined that I do have 1 or 2 assets. Maybe I'm single, maybe I'm married, but I need to talk to someone. And that's all I'm at, right? Mm-hmm. That's all I'm at. I have heard enough to say, this applies to me and I need to do something. At that point, what would you recommend that person who's in this place of like, I need to do something, what would you recommend that they do?
Well, a few things. One, start making your list of people that you want to have benefit from, all your hard work and all your assets, and those that you don't want to benefit. I mean, be very clear as to who you want to help and who you don't. That might make it easier for you when you decide what to allocate to certain people upon your passing. And then just start making a list of all your assets. The value of your house, the mortgage on it, because that plays a role when someone has the mortgage passed down to them, or the deed passed down to them. That plays a factor. And the car, all your bank accounts. Just start making that list and start having not just the list of what is, but the details with it, like your account number, the value of each of those things, to determine how big your asset is, to see what tools are necessary to pass down your wealth. And you might not need much. Maybe you do need a trust, because there's certain limits in estate planning before taxes are at issue. It's increased substantially in the last few years. But, if you do meet that threshold where you're over, I think it's 1.13 million, then you need to find some tools to kind of lower that amount so your estate's not getting taxed. That's something to consider. So really just making a list of all your assets and what it's worth, and where to find information on, because we live in we live in a digital society. So creating a list of all your digital assets, all the account information is very critical, because when you do pass and you don't have that in place, how do you get access to those accounts really quickly, figure out what's going on? How do you tell the banks or the credit card companies, if you choose to, if you credit card companies, hey, look, this person is deceased, whatnot. That's also very critical. So just start making your list of who you want to give your stuff to, what you actually have, your liabilities as well, to see what's going to threaten the wealth that you have incurred, and how to protect that from protect your wealth from any threats. So those are probably the three main things. Definitely have the list ready for the people, your assets, and your liabilities.
Got it. That's so helpful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Look, I'm over here taking notes like, all right, I need to, like everybody else, we got to think, not only do I have a will, do my parents have a will?
Right.
Right. Do my grandparents have a will?
Right.
If the answer is yes, where is the will?
Right. Where is the will? Exactly.
Don't nobody know where it is.
Exactly.
Right? Where is the will?
I forgot about the guardianship. Actually, for kids, you mentioned kids earlier. Figure out who do you want taking care of your kid when you pass. That's something that's very critical. I got actually a 4-year-old now. We recently had a death in the family this year, and she was asking me as a 4, so what are you going to do when you pass away? I said, wow.
Lord, yeah, to be my associate, ain't you? You ready to? She said, we need. She's
ready to go. I got what, like at least 10 years.
Right? You said, we got a plan.
Yeah, she's held me to task. So.
Right? I know that's right. Look, my sister's already claimed she got a T-shirt made for my daughter Camille's baby. So I got some godparents, and they just gonna be right, because Black people, we do godparents, right?
Yes.
If you're the girl, you got 2 godmamas and a godfather, or so forth. But I know my mother and my sister, right? They would expect that, and so it is. What's the plan, and we want our loved ones to be taken care of. And I thought you broke it down. So I'm going to repeat this to some folks. If you don't have a plan for your stuff, your assets, the government does have one for you. Right? And, they don't know nothing about who's your favorite, or who did you wrong, or who needs the help. It does not matter. Right. They let everybody else get a chunk of your hard-earned work. And so it behooves us as Black people to do our due diligence in protecting and preserving what we have worked so hard for, right? Bernice dropped a big number. She said 1-point-something million. I know some folks said, I don't know if that's
I know. But it's there.
You in DC and you got a house, you right there.
Right.
Don't underestimate the accumulation of our assets. We have wealth in our community. We may not pass it down. We may not be accumulating a lot, but we have a certain amount of wealth, and we better hold on to it and be really smart about it, because that's the only way we're going to grow it, right? Is by protecting ourselves in the process. One of the things that I am just so awestruck every week, y'all, is just by how much, right, these lawyers really bless us with their intelligence and their information in ways that, as you can see, they are connected to community, right? They're invested in community. They come from our community. They are a part of community. You can't put a price tag on that, right? For someone who's going to have your back during crises, during challenge, and during the times where you need the best counsel possible. And so, I just really, I thank you, Bernice, for being a part of the Justice Connection Network. I'm so proud to call you in the ranks and appreciate you sharing your time with us this evening, right? And selflessly giving up of your time and sharing your knowledge.
You're quite welcome. I'll tell my daughter that too.
Yes. Thank you. She was a baby girl, because she was like,
she's like yes.
So with that, we will not have baby girl. We will wrap it up. But I thank everyone for tuning in every week. Black lawyers breaking it down. I mean, You can't find this anywhere else. And I'm going to tell you, I don't say that to brag about it. I say it because this is so important for us to be able to connect with one another, to talk with one another, to share with one another, to empower and educate one another. And we're doing it here because Bernice is here because she's got love for her people. Straight up. I'm not paying anyone to come on board and spend their Thursday evenings. She does it from love. And that same love and that same passion and that same commitment come out every single time she represents a client. And so I know you've been seeing her information scroll on the bottom. I know you see the Justice Connection information scrolling as well. And I invite you to check us out, to subscribe, be connected so that you know the latest information. We're always sending folks legal insight and information and want to be responsive to the community. So if there's an issue, a topic that you're interested in, connect with blackusa.news or Justice Connection on our Facebook pages. Let us know. We will definitely respond. And we want to make sure that we're bringing you information that connects to you in your life. So again, Bernice, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. It was a great time.
Yes, I had a good time, girl. I'm so proud. I am on a mission to do some real work in my own family around estate planning. And I know that God has brought so many of you here to the Black Lawyers Roundtable to be able to enrich us all in ways that we can feel empowered and start having these conversations. Because we're gonna have you back, girl. We got, because this is just what's the 101. We got to go to 201, 301.
Yes, exactly at the time.
Yeah, definitely. But it ain't gonna be tonight because it's late, y'all. Okay.
Right, bedtime for the little one.
Good night, everyone, and thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good one.
Good night. Bye.